elderly cleaning lady was fired for taking leftover food to her son, but when he graduated, Angela, totally worried, was walking through the streets of the big city thinking, "Please God bless me with a little job. You know I don't ask you much. Do it for my son. He needs to finish his studies." In a town far from the city, there was a quite comfortable cabin where Angela lived, surrounded by plants, animals, and a huge forest. The young woman, barely 18 years old, fell in love with Marcos, an elegant young man from a landed family. Their dream was to have many children who would play in the fields and learn about the businesses that their father managed. However, life did not bless them with some children in time, and they underwent expensive and painful treatments with the aim of conceiving. Because of that disappointment, they lived in conflict, fights, and discussions that only cut the bond of love that both had. Marcos, annoyed, came home demanding that Angela don't fulfill her duty as a woman as to give him children, and that she only dedicated herself to spending the money on useless treatments. Every weekend, he left home for the bar. When he returned home after midnight, he shouted at the poor woman, "You are a useless mule. You can't even give me a child. Get out of my sight. I can't believe that you can't even give me a child. I am the jester of my friends and families because I married a mule." The poor woman shuddered, crying in silence. This behavior lasted for almost 20 years when Angela, with all her strength, put an end to her marriage because she did not tolerate that Marcos had beaten and humiliated her, saying, "I will go with another woman, with many women who love me and can give me children," in his state of drunkenness. The poor woman was devastated because she never imagined that the man she loved and with whom she had been struggling to be able to conceive had beaten her. Angela had decided to improve her quality of life. She looked for a job as a supervisor in a dairy company. She was doing quite well that she decided to celebrate her 38th birthday with her friends and family. Everything was planned. It would be in the field with large pots of food and an orchestra. However, it did not turn out as she imagined because on the morning of her birthday, Angela felt very bad. She was dizzy, vomiting, so much that she could not even stand up. She called her best friend Rosa, who took her to the hospital. Suspending the celebration, the woman underwent analysis and checkups. When the doctor invited her to the consultation, he gave her the news that she was 4 months pregnant. When she listened to the doctor, her mind became cloudy. Her body shuddered, and the only thing that she thought was, "How is it possible? If I've been trying to get pregnant for years with medications and interventions and I never succeeded, and right now that I'm alone, I'm pregnant. God, please enlighten me. I don't know whether to call Marcos and tell him, but the truth is that I don't want anything with him anymore. Because in all the years I've been married, I've never felt as whole as I do now." Leaving the office, she invited her friends to her house to talk about what happened. The girls, quite intrigued, without hesitation accompanied her. When she gave her news, a scream was heard. The friends were happy about the news, but they did not hesitate to tell her, "Angela, beautiful friend, congratulations for such a valuable miracle that you carry in your womb, but before you decide anything, I would like to tell you that after years, I see you at your best. Don't waste it. I know that with your work, you can support yourself and the child. Also, look, we are the aunts of your little one, so please think about it," said Rosa, her best friend. "Angela, the last time Marcos behaved violently, and I have no doubt that his behavior will be repeated, so please seek wisdom in your heart, and I will tell you that an absent father is better than a father setting a bad example," added Susanna. The words of her friends strengthened Angela so much that with great affection, she gave her opinion. "Girls, I thank you with all my heart for what you are telling me. I really understand everything you say to me, and I am not going to go back with Marcos. He was unfaithful to me, and I can't forget that I was alone. The treatments we gave me damaged my health, and he never stayed with me to take care of me. What's more, he was always going to drink. The truth is, I don't want to go through that again, neither my child. I won't allow it. I will raise the child alone." Time passed, and little Ricky was born, a healthy and robust boy who grew up with his mother. She continued working in different agricultural jobs and spending quality time with her son. The boy was quite dedicated in his studies. His grades were outstanding, being the pride of his mother. Many birthdays and gifts passed. The boy's aunts and friends of Angela enjoyed with him along with their own children. They went on trips, walks, and more. Angela felt so comfortable with her son and her life in the field that had no intention of changing it at all. In the blink of an eye, 17 years had passed. The boy was already a brave and loving young man with his mother. One afternoon, while they both enjoyed ice cream on their furniture, the young man told his mother, "Mom, I'm thinking of studying marketing. What do you think?" asked Ricky. Angela said that she is supporting her son 100% and she would continue continue like that. Quite distressed, they both hugged each other, sealing that promise. In 2 months, they were preparing their bags to travel to the city. Angela sold her properties, bought a small house in the city, and started working and cleaning because what she had studied and her work experience was agricultural, and in the city, the offers were not ambitious. Her income was quite low. However, she never told her son that there was a need because it was evident that the young man made an effort studying every day. Ricky's university life was quite remarkable, as in his basic studies, he was a young man who was related very well with the teachers because they considered him a brilliant student because he stood out in everything. Unfortunately, the years had passed for Angela too, and when she turned 60, her bosses gave her a dismissal letter because of her age. She could no longer work in cleaning. The poor woman asked to speak with the boss to tell him that she could continue working without any problem and that she needed the job. However, the boss replied quite ashamed that he could not keep her at work because of her age, because when she was over 60 years old, she was considered a vulnerable person and could acquire an illness for which the company would have to take responsibility, and she was not willing to assume anything extra. Quite dismayed, the old woman shed some tears because she felt useless. She truly was a woman who could not keep the promise of supporting her son when he was in the last year of university and when the expenses for graduating would be higher. Sitting on a bench, she cried silently, regretting being an old woman. Taking courage, she walked slowly through the city with the determination to find a job. However, the truth was that at her age, everything was quite complex. In the interviews, the typical phrase was, "We will call you." The disappointment and despair made her body heat up because she felt frustrated. That was not what she expected. In her heart, she kept thinking about Ricky, her son, and his graduation next year. She even wanted to look for Marcos to support her Ricky, but she was afraid that he would humiliate her and even humiliate her own son. She spent many hours walking until she arrived at a restaurant where she asked if there would be a position that she had previously worked in cleaning and was willing to do anything in order to get a job. The owner, who was quite interested, took advantage of the old woman by hiring her to wash dishes and attend when necessary at a much lower cost than what she actually paid. Being the only option, the woman accepted without hesitation. At the beginning, they treated her with a lot of respect, but after a month and a half, the owner always threatened to fire her, asked her to do overtime without pay, humiliated her while she washed the dishes. The woman, with her head down, continued to perform her duties. When she got home, she cried because of the humiliations she received. She took some leftover food from the restaurant out of her bag, which she heated to feed her son when he returned from studying. When she heard that her son was coming, she quickly changed her countenance. She served the food and asked her son about his day. He told her how great it has been to study every day. She listened to her son happily. The young man, without knowing about the food situation, told his mother that now he would go to work to accompany her to eat at the restaurant. The old woman, a little surprised, replied, Of course, my Ricky, it's what I want the most, although you know that it is not necessary, my child." The young man said, "Of course it is, Mom. I love you very much, and the most I want is to accompany you so you don't forget me." They both laughed heartily. In the following days, Ricky would arrive at the restaurant at lunchtime. When the old woman saw him, she would take out 2 leftover tapers for her and her son, inviting him to eat behind the restaurant. They were hidden. The young man asked her why that attitude of hiding. The old woman evaded him, saying, "I don't want them to call me. I want to spend time with you, my son." Ricky, smiling, said, "Oh, Mommy, you're jealous about your son." They both smiled again. The months passed that way until on one occasion, the restaurant manager watches the old woman collect the leftovers from the plates and fill them in tapers. He follows her and discovers that she was sitting behind the restaurant with a young man. Very furious, he approaches her, shouting, "How can it be possible that you, old woman, abuse my trust when you know that everything here is mine? You should be inside washing everything instead of being here playing with the food with whom you know is this boy, another starving just like you." The totally embarrassed old lady cries, apologizing, looks at her son, and quickly enters the restaurant behind her boss. Seeing such a scene, Ricky throws away his plate of food and furiously runs from that place aimlessly. The old woman from the laundry room only sees him walk away. She couldn't go out after her son because she knew that was her only job option. The young man ran with his heart pumping hard until he reached a park where he cried without noticing other people. After half an hour, Angela appears and sits next to her son, asking him how he was. The very moved young man tells her that she shouldn't withstand this type of abuse, to which the old woman replies, "Ricky, my son, I want you to know something. Forgive me for having made you go through so much humiliation. I didn't want you to see that, but you You just have to focus on your studies, son. Forget about this. Let me look for a new job. Now they fired me, but I know I'll find one. Stop crying, my little one, that all this will pass. But mother, how can you ask me to forget what I've seen if that has carved my heart? I can't forget that you have subjected yourself to such injustice because of me, and I am a fool not to see it. I will stop studying, mother. I will dedicate myself to giving you the best because I love you. I value everything you do for me, and I understand that your sacrifice was high when you left your customs, your people, and your stability to venture with me here. I have been a bad son. Please forgive me, mother. I owe everything to you, Ricky said, crying. The mother, angry at what her son said, replies, Ricky, this conversation is over. I will not tolerate what you are telling me. When you were born a son, I knew you would be special because I conceived you myself in a miracle, and I also knew that it would be a challenge to raise you. Yes, the change we have given has not been what I thought, but it is fine. I have accepted it because I love you, and because I know that you are a courageous man who is going to move forward for himself and for the love of me, your mother. So dry your tears and go to study. Leave me here and I will solve everything. That scene in the park was seen by Pedro, Ricky's university professor, who came to comfort him, telling him that his mother was absolutely right and that the worst decision he would make today would be to stop studying when he is only months away from completing his studies. The next day, they called the young man to the Direction of Development and Well-Being to offer him a full scholarship for the cycle of studies that he was missing, in addition to a large discount for his degrees, in the name of Professor Pedro. The young man, quite grateful, accepted, promising himself being the best for the love of his mother. It was so, while he was studying, he worked on the recommendation of his teacher in different audiovisual campaigns in which he was paid and could support his home. When he graduated, he invested in a small marketing company in which he was in charge of its brands. He got a juicy loan, which he invested buying a piece of land in front of the restaurant where his mother used to work as a dishwasher. He also opened a restaurant that flowed progressively to success, where Angela administered and applied policies of fair salary and employment for the elderly. The former boss of the envied old woman could do nothing but sell his business to Angela. At the opening of the new restaurant, Ricky gave the opening words, hugging his mother and assuring that everything he had acquired and even what would come in the future was due to the efforts of his angel on earth, his mother.